Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
This show is brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation and the Compassionate Friends. Well, Heidi, we have an interesting show today because if there's anything that I really like, it's the arts in grief and loss. I think it's so helpful and so healing.
Yeah, I love how people express themselves through art and heal through art, and we have some wonderful guests today, Mom. Like you said, we're doing a show called Dealing with Grief Through Art, and we have three very wonderful guests, and we know a couple of them. We're going to talk to Nancy Gershman and Debla Heredia-Brown, and Nancy is a memory artist, and she created a dreamscape for Debla.
Oh, that's really interesting because you're going to find the dreamscapes are really interesting. They're a digital form of art. You might think about maybe collaging, but this is digital. It's a little different, and they are so beautiful and so creative. I'm excited to talk about them.
Yeah, and we're going to show a lot of Nancy's art on our show today.
And hear why she made this piece for Debla.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk with Kate. And we've talked to her before, Kate Rolston. And she's a documentary filmmaker, and she is doing a film called A New Dawn. And it is about widows.
And she's working on that one, but I know she's done some other wonderful work, and we're going to be showing a clip, right?
Yes, we're going to show a clip about real moms, and it's really interesting, and about how having children kind of transforms and changes your life.
We're just going to show a short clip to give you an idea of how great her work is, because you're going to be excited when her new film comes out. Well, let's get started with our friend Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Gloria. Hi, Heidi.
So great to have you on the show. And with our friend here,
Debla.
Hello.
Yeah.
And you two met at a hospice. You were working at a hospice.
That's correct. I walked in cold, and your father was in the bed, and he was deteriorating at that point, but he was still talking a little bit.
Well, let's come to that story in a minute, because it's such a great story. I want to give time for that. Let's talk about your work and the beginning. Now, we have a picture of you and your dad. Talk about that.
That's very sweet. We were on the Esplanade on the Upper East Side, and we just did our first selfie. That's what the picture is.
Wow. Oh, I love that.
And look at those schnozolas. Yeah.
Now, did you do memory work with him?
No, because my father was just ardently against false reality, and he looked at my work not as easing reality, you know, if you were feeling grief, but rather just creating a false front. And he wanted that when he died, you know, that we would just throw his ashes in the East River. I hope they didn't hear that. And that would be it. That would be the finality. But he also lost his eyesight at the point where I started my work. So he really never truly understood that I was creating new memories.
I love that. Let's get right to that, because I want to show this Sleigh Picture and have you talk about it and the woman that you produced it for.
Yes, for Jane. Okay, so Jane, I met actually by phone only. What happened was the bereavement counselor told me that she was really being triggered by packing up her mother's things. Her mother had already passed. And Jane was a photographer, so what I did was I introduced myself, and I said that my whole sole purpose is to make a picture of a memory, either that you have or you wish you had. And that we could create this with existing photographs. And the first thing I want to do is I want to know, I want her to start thinking from her mother's point of view. Her mother's name was Sylvia. I want to know what was Sylvia's, what was the place where she felt most alive. And she really loved her home in Englewood, where she brought up her children. And so I just very simply said, can you put your hands on a photograph of that house?
And so there is a picture of the house?
Well, the house is there. Jane is there herself.
Yeah.
But
she's there, but is it a snowman?
Well, that's not a snowman.
Ah,
so what happened was, you know, she was very, very troubled by the loss, and every time I would even mention her mother's name, you know, she would break down and cry. But I learned miraculously that while Jane was a photographer, her mother was an abstract sculptress. And I said, please, you know, on our next phone call, I'd like to see some of these photographs of sculptures. Just send them to me. And one of them was of this this sort of friendly fellow, you know, who had this flipper that kind of looked like it was waving hello.
Wow.
Now, when I proposed, see, in the original photograph, there's a snowman there and her girlfriend. So I knew that technically I would have to erase them anyway. And so this sculpture, you know, provided the perfect, you know, mask. But she got very sad when she saw that sculpture, and she saw it originally as a sculpture that was waving goodbye, that it was Sylvia saying goodbye. But then she realized that she could make herself feel differently. And she could look at it as Sylvia saying, "You're going to be okay, and you know, I'm wishing you well."
Oh, I like that.
And that was really a cathartic moment for her, where she realized that she could shift perspectives on and off like that. Now, why is her mother in a sled? Because she had this very fleeting thought in hospice, right when she declined putting her mother on a breathing machine. And she said, please, please, Santa, if you would, you know, just go on your rounds and then come back and wait for my mother and take her up in the sled.
Wow.
Why did she say that? She's Jewish, you know, an atheist. But her mother, you know, and Jane loved Christmas time. It was a happy time for them. She loved the decorations, the music, and she thought to herself, you know, this would be much more fun than lying, you know, in bed here for her mother. And so she had this self-healing thought.
That's wonderful. Now let's talk about how, Debla, how you met Nancy and what it meant to you. Where was your dad?
My dad was in hospice, and I recall that day, like if it was just yesterday, Nancy walked into the room and she introduced herself to us and spoke about her dreamscape and what it meant for a lot of people, how we could introduce either his memories or maybe, you know, having him in a vacation he always wanted to take. And as she's talking to me, I'm thinking, wow, what a magnificent way to transcend this morning that, you know, we were all really depressed at that time, and turn it around, like sort of what my father wanted, excuse me, and make it memorable, you know, showing his achievements, and it all came together on a
Right at hospice.
It was immortalized.
Were you hesitant at all when you heard about that? Or
No, not at all. I'm a big, you know, fan of art. Art being therapeutic is my first love. So when Nancy came in with that idea, I thought, oh, wow, what, you know, this is really forward thinking. Let me just analyze it further. I pulled in my family. I said, listen, guys, this is a way for all of us to come together and experience our own. Like, how did my father touch our lives? And not only his accomplishments, but I really need all your participation. It brought the family together from so many places, so many arguments, you know, family rivalries.
Now he was from Cuba.
Yes. My
Yeah,
father was
talk a
from
little
Cuba.
bit about him before we see this dreamscape.
Oh,
It's
okay,
really
sure.
interesting.
Because he was a big deal.
Oh, yes, he was. My father was blind at an early age in Cuba. He at about 18 or maybe before that. My father grew up in the southern part of Cuba, but he attended the University of Havana, where Castro and him both graduated in 1950.
Wow.
My father, as a blind man, became a lawyer by memory.
Wow.
He also played chess, and the stamp immortalizes his achievements, you know, with ladies.
That's amazing
Yeah.
to me.
Let's-
Here you've got a blind father who becomes a lawyer, which is so much about reading and being able to see, and also he becomes an amazing chess player, which I think is even
And
more
he was
incredible.
a human phone book.
Yes.
'Cause
He was like a
His
computer.
memory,
Amazing.
because
We would-
everything had to be about memory, right? I don't know
Yes,
how you play chess
logic.
blind, I have to be honest with you.
Well, you know, when you think
That's
about
incredible.
computers, it's kind of relative because it's a binary code, and
You
my
got your
father was
table.
all about math. So he brought,
Wow.
I mean, he was a mentor to the whole family.
It sounds like
he
it.
was a leader in his own right and an overachiever.
Yeah.
So the stamp, the way we saw it as a united family, and you know, our communications with Nancy was like, let's bring together all his major achievements, and that's what the
And
commemorative
so you
stamp
have him
does.
there on the stamp. How did you decide to do a postage stamp? I love
It
that.
was an accident because
it evolved.
yeah, it evolved because so first we had this picture of him just sitting on a couch, and then we wanted to bring in his chess making and also you know, his national right, his nationalism with the flag. And as I was looking for the right flag, I must have come across some stamps, and I thought, wow, this is the best way to show someone who's larger than life.
Absolutely.
And then the funny part was that, you know, during your period of mourning, you also submitted this stamp to the post, you know, to the United States Post Office for what is it, Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, did
So
they
it had
accept
another
Well,
life.
it's an ongoing process.
Right.
It's quite a bit of
Yeah,
people
that's
apply.
amazing.
But yes, I
And
mean,
now, wait a minute, and your kids put the stamp on your
your
pin,
that's
on your
right.
button.
And they also made T-shirts. So
T-shirts.
that
Wow.
would be his grandchildren.
And
We were
what does
so
that
proud of
mean? What does the Spanish mean right there?
Okay, that's a poem from Jose Marti, who's a famous publisher, famous. He was involved in politics and everything, and it was like "Hacer es la mejor manera de decir," which basically means actions speak louder than words.
Wow.
And my father, how he lived his life in that manner, you know, not just
His life was his message, basically.
absolutely.
Wow, that's
Absolutely.
amazing.
He did not let his disability hold him back at all. So we had to also, you know, step up and rise to the occasion. So he has been quite a huge, you know, like right now the talk of the town is the stamp because my sister has it on her wall in her dining room.
How large do you make them?
Oh, huge, huge.
I love it.
It was there for his, you know.
How wonderful.
When we had his wake, but you know what I like to say is that it's a nice way to change and have him live on through this medium. This is very important, you know, stamp that was put together. This Dreamscape, thanks to Nancy. You know, his bloodline. It's a legacy that will go on forever.
How
because-
fabulous. Well, Nancy, how do we get in touch with you? I'm watching this and I'm thinking, wow,
Yeah.
I have a
want to
website.
do this.
I have a website
Give us your
called
website.
Art for Your Sake, S-A-K-E, Saki, and .com. Yeah, that's the best way.
And you're in New York. Do I have to live by you? What if I live in California?
Can do it by phone, you know, as long as I can, you know, get a hold of the photograph, and that can be even a photograph can be photographed and then sent through the cell phone or emailed or.
Now, how do you get started? Do you have a lot of people send you photographs, or what do you
It
do?
always starts with a conversation.
Okay.
Yes, because how else will we know what you know photographs to use until we find out what the preferred story is?
The preferred story.
Yeah.
Expand on that
Well,
a
that
little
actually
bit.
comes from narrative therapy. Maybe you can
it.
even describe what narrative therapy is, but the idea is that I am actually acting as a catalyst and working with someone who is probably so distressed at that moment that they wouldn't even know what their preferred story is, and I'm just helping them figure out what would be the perfect prescription, in a sense, for their grief. You know, in your case, it was more of a legacy piece. You know, for Jane, it was more of a wish fulfillment.
That's interesting.
And also, it gave her confidence in her own ability to heal herself.
Yeah, and she reworked her narrative. Because at first she
That's
saw
right.
the sculpture as something negative, and then she
Right.
saw it as something, she reworked it and saw it as something positive.
Right. So it's the recontextualization also of those photographs. You know, they can be very painful for those who are grieving to look at the original photograph. Did you feel that way when you saw Louise's
Yes.
photograph again?
I called in a lot of, you know, like family members come in, and give me your photographs, submit them, and tell me, how this is indicative. But again, it was very therapeutic for them because they brought it to the table with their experience of the photographs. Then I sort of introduced them to you, and you were like sort of guiding the whole process through as we thought about it. The more you gave us your feedback and you tried to put it together, it's like it came together, all these thoughts and how do we
I
best
love that it's up and it's in a positive way to pay honor and tribute to your dad.
Absolutely.
So that when people walk into your sister's house, they talk about it, they talk about him.
It's a conversation starter.
And it's passing down a piece of history to the next generation or to people that didn't know him.
That's right, that's right. Which is all interesting. I mean, I thought that the whole concept was so good because, like, again, we weren't going through the grieving process. It was a very painful time. And, things turned around in a nice way, and the family very united.
And even in the funeral home, it also lifted up everyone, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We even sang to, we had like music in the background when my father went his way, Frank Sinatra.
I love it. I did it my way.
My father wanted a celebration. He got a celebration.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
Yeah.
Now you work in a nursing home. I mean, in a hospice.
Yes, in a
hospice
hospice.
programs. Wow.
And I was frightened at first to do that
I was
because,
gonna say,
because
this
you
is
do
intense.
walk in cold. It's not like you're introduced by the nurse or the doctor, but I generally walk into rooms where there is a family because the family is the conduit to the photographs. And I think if we didn't know it was going to be a postage stamp, we probably might not have picked that very same photograph where he's sitting. Because I remember still that you were saying that he liked thinking on his feet.
Correct.
Didn't he tell you that?
Yes,
yeah.
His whole, that's how I first envisioned it, like how best to immortalize him on his feet or sitting down.
Yeah.
And it just took a form of its own, which
So that's why we have to talk it out.
Now, did your dad pass away in hospice? How were you able to go in and do this?
My father died at home, and it was really a surprise how fast the Alzheimer's sped up in 1 year. And we just knew that he was deteriorating because he was starting to drink from his hand like this. And
it's so interesting to hear you both that have had adults, parents die, because that's one of our major things on our website, that people come in and ask us about parent loss. And I just think it's so minimized that when we lose our parents, it doesn't matter
I
how
did make
old
a
we
scrapbook, by the way.
Ah.
As much as whatever I say about scrapbooking, making that album of my father and photographs of him taken by the caregiver just in the last couple of months, or my selfie, and then adding emails that came in from people and just tearing out the best parts. That was really therapeutic for me.
And will you do a Dreamscape now?
Nope. But for his
your
wife.
dad? Okay, yes.
For his wife,
So you
because
will-
she asked me.
Oh, yeah.
But my father always said, don't do
Are you
that
going to
for
do it
me.
anyway or no?
I'm going to do it because his wife, my stepmother, asked me to.
Okay,
So
so
now
you're
I
going
am
to do
going
that.
to do
Well,
it.
we're going to be excited to see what that looks
All
like.
right.
Yes, and that will be healing and therapeutic for you as his daughter.
I feel good about my father. I'm not hurting. I don't feel as raw because he was begging to pass.
Yeah.
He really was.
Well, listen, thank you guys so much, and we're going to see a roll-in for Kate Rolston.
Thank you so
and
much
then
for
we're
thank
going
you.
we're going to talk to you after with Kate because we want to get your
Good.
artist perspective together.
Great.
So we'll take a look at her roll-in about Mom.
Welcome back to Real Moms, Real Stories, Real Savvy. With all the controversy and media attention surrounding vaccines today, there seems to be more questions than answers.
You cannot expect your doctor to know these details. Pediatricians do not learn this stuff in medical
Why
school.
can't you?
Today we're going to talk about some cleaning tips. The first thing I would suggest is that you're going to want to kill germs.
Having a baby changes everything. The way I think has changed, the way I buy has changed, my needs have changed.
I have a child that she's still sleeping in the bed with us, you know, and how do you get sexy, you know, with the baby still in the bed?
Your home needs to be based on your marriage, not on your kids.
What fascinated me was the enormous transition into motherhood, the transition that women go through from achieving pregnancy, going through pregnancy, choosing their way of birthing, and then all the questions that come along with how to raise their children.
Little boys are very anxious. Little girls are very anxious. What are they anxious about? That they've got their people, that their mother's around.
Just hearing another mom's perspective, even if her issues differ from yours, is so reassuring.
Hi, Kate. It's so great to have you on the show today.
Oh, thanks so much for inviting me.
And it's nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Now, how did you get into the filmmaking? You do beautiful work. I love that, moms. How did you start with the mom theme?
Well, I was inspired to start my own company actually when my father passed away, 2003. And I'd been thinking about it for a while, but as you know, starting your own business takes a lot of courage and creativity. And something was holding me back. But when he passed away, I just thought to myself, what are you waiting for? You know, life is so short. So I started my own company, and I'd already been working with two of the largest nursing organizations in the country, the Association of Women's Health, Obstetric and Neonatal Nurses, and the American College of Nurse Midwives. And I was fascinated with the whole story around birth. And I also learned that the first 1,001 days of our life set us up as an adult. So basically what happens to us during the 9 months of pregnancy in the first 2 years of our life is the groundwork for how we will become an adult, whether we'll have self-confidence, what type of person we'll become if we'll even go to college. And this study was done in England, actually. 1,001 Critical Days is a manifesto, and they studied the effect of stress on the mother during pregnancy in the first 2 years.
Wow.
It reminded me that my mother was under incredible stress when she was pregnant with her 5th child, because my father actually left her during that period. And unfortunately, my sister, who is the youngest, had an awful lot of difficulty growing up. She actually attempted suicide twice.
Wow.
So knowing all of this about the importance of motherhood and the maternal influence on a child, I wanted to create content and a television show and a community around that television show that gave women a place to come and convene and talk to one another and get advice from one another.
I love this idea, and I was telling my mom before the show, you came full circle because your father died, so that's a loss, and now you're talking about babies being born, births, and how it transforms our lives, how that transforms life.
And now you're moving to work with widows.
I am.
Yes.
I'm moving
So
to work
Heidi, you were
with
saying
widows.
birth and death when we were talking about it.
Yes, exactly.
Both for your dad and the moms,
Yeah.
and now you're moving to the idea of widowhood.
Exactly. I'm working with a very dear friend of mine who you had on the show
Yes.
recently, Dawn Giosi, who is so inspirational to me, and I'm so proud to be working with her. Her story's amazing. She lost her husband in a tragic accident, and she was a very successful businesswoman and a mother of 2 beautiful children. I know her children very well. And of course, this brought her to her knees, and you know, she has been through an enormous amount of grief during that period. But I see a woman who's transformed now, and she's been through an incredible journey, and now has dedicated her life to helping other people go through loss and help them on their journey see that they can have hope if they're open to hope, and if they want to start their life again, we're going to show them the path through a project called A New Dawn.
A New Dawn. I love this because, you know, early on when we're grieving, we need to see people that have found hope and that have transformed their lives so that we can hold on to them as a lifeline.
Exactly. And the documentary that we're going to make together is not only Dawn telling her story, but it's also meeting with other people who've come out of loss and grief on the other side, have really positive messages, and they will act as an inspiration to others to also find a way to heal. And we're setting up an online community, and we're going to give people the tools to start their own groups. And Dawn's going to show them what she went through in her process that they can do as well. Journaling was something that was very important. She was also invited to join a slightly renegade group of widows that was an experiment at the time by an author called Becky Aikman. And Becky had had a bad experience in widows groups because she wanted to move on with her life, and they asked her to leave the group.
Wow.
So
She found the groups a little depressing, right?
she did. She
and
found
not
them
hopeful enough. Yeah.
not hopeful enough, depressing,
And shaming.
And shaming. There was a lot of shame
You know
attached
what
to
I
it.
find with both of you and all of you in the art here is that you are offering something to people. I mean, as a person who was very brief when my son died, you want people who can offer you something. You don't want to be, you empower.
Yeah.
The empowering is so important, and the belief that you can move on and
Exactly.
that. Kate, how would people find you and your work?
So A New Dawn, newdawn.com is where they can find the community. We're going to be starting making the documentary this winter. We're going to be traveling around the country. We're launching our Indiegogo campaign for the movie. So if you come to our website, you'll find the information there.
And give us your website again.
It's a-new-dawn.com.
Okay, good.
a-new-dawn.com.
So if I were a widow or just
Yeah.
interested in the project, I'd be able to get in touch with you and maybe even
Absolute-
get interviewed or something.
Yeah,
Who knows?
absolutely. Oh, we're looking for stories. So if anybody has any inspirational stories or they know someone.
Stories of widows and widowers?
Yes, both.
Okay.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, I want to thank you guys for all being on the show and for the hope that you bring to people.
Yes.
I think it's so important, don't you, Heidi?
Oh, absolutely. And I love the creative outlets that you bring to people as well.
Thank you, Rose.
Really
Thank you.
fabulous, and art is such an important thing.
And
As I
thank
said,
you for
it
what you're
brings
doing
hope.
for everyone as well, giving us all hope and bringing us all together.
Well, we love it. And we love interviewing people that have gone on to transform their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really important. And we want to thank you for watching the show today. And as Heidi, I always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours till you find your own, and come and visit us at opentohope.com. God bless.